We have to decontaminate all clothing and boots before we even go on an island, and then pretty much only your feet. And you can use a tripod, but you have to disinfect the tripod as well. It's the only thing allowed to touch the ground. So you're not allowed to kneel or crouch because there's a fear that you might pick up something that's contaminated with bird flu and then could take it across the island, but probably more importantly, you could transport it to another island.
There's a lot to think about when you travel to some places on Earth as a traveller. And my guest David Wright returns from Antarctica with the story he promised to share with us at the start of the year. He talks of the deep stillness that he encountered on his expedition as a guide and the practicalities of photographing this vast, beautiful land and seascape. It's another one of our specials, a focused interview whilst I'm on my own travels. Though to somewhat warmer climes, because I'm recording this from a rooftop in Kolkata, West Bengal. I'm in a hotel called Lalit, so it's a fair distance from David. Anyway, he's become a very good friend of the show now, and he's known worldwide as an award-winning filmmaker and photographer who's worked in more than 70 countries for clients including National Geographic and the BBC. His path has gradually moved, though, toward personal projects, and this Antarctic voyage is part of that chapter, where he helps guests find absolute beauty and connection with nature in a world that's known for its sheer isolation and challenging weather. So no letters today. This is the third of 4 specials where the guests have done all the talking in terms of subjects and topics. But before we start, a big hearty thank you to the members of our community who, through your kind membership to our Patreon for as little as a fancy cup of coffee per month, keep this show on the airwaves. You have your own extra show each week called The Extra Mile, which this week features extra miler Bill Darby talking about a very powerful picture of hands. And thank you too to arthelper.ai who support this show. If you've got a photograph sitting on a hard drive and you've wondered about actually selling it, or them, but don't know how to start, the marketing side and the mock-ups and the emails, well, that's where arthelper.ai handle all that stuff for you. If you use the code PhotoWalk at arthelper.ai, you will get 30 days of the professional service for free. Right. From 32 degrees here in Kolkata to more than several degrees under, swapping India for the coolness of Antarctica. Whip out your checklist. Wearing gloves, obviously. I don't want you getting frostbite. Coffee. Check. Big warm flask full, that is. Walking boots. Check. Ones that are a tad fleecy. Have you got some spare film or an extra SD card? Check. Well, let's walk.
Today on the Photo Walk.
Things are getting bad when one of the crew comes along with a big wrench and closes the porthole and bolts it closed. It's like, okay, something bad's about to happen. So that mother bear got to the point where she would bring the cubs over 20 or 30 yards from me, dig a little bit of a hole, bed them down, get them to go to sleep, and then she'd walk off 2 miles across the sea ice. We're actually standing in an active caldera of a volcano, and that's steam rising out of the beach from the magma that's not far underneath. I see people, it literally brings tears to their eyes to be there and experience it and hear the sounds of a penguin colony. But it's kind of bizarre because we did see leopard seals pulled out on the ice on ice floes and penguins standing all around them. So it's only game on once they're in the water. Despite the sound of the ship, you could hear the whales singing, you could hear the bubbles, you could hear the blow of the whale when it came up to breathe.
David, you're back in one piece. I never doubted it, but I was a little bit concerned when you told me about the Drake Shake and the passage that you make down to Antarctica. I obviously had to go and look at it. And as YouTube does to me, I go down huge rabbit holes of YouTube hours, actually, because once you start on one passage, and I specifically put in bad weather, Drake Shake, I got so much, I thought, oh my God, is he in that? How was it?
Well, we got off very luckily on the way down. Wasn't too bad at all, although I think I was a little bit out of practice on being on a ship. So it's like, just take it easy. But on the way back, it did kind of catch us, and it was pretty rough. We had I don't know, there were probably, I mean, it was only kind of like a 4 out of 10 for the Drake Passage, but still probably 20, 30 foot waves, and breaking up over the bridge, which is like 4 decks up. So pretty rough. The passengers had left us at that point, so it was just the crew on board, which was
they'd all
probably
flown
for
home,
them.
had they, or something?
They flew home, yes. It was just us on board, so we could just hightail as fast as possible.
Did the passengers go out on the ship across the Drake?
We actually had 3 lots of passengers during the month I was there. So first lot sailed down with us, and then they then just fly in and out.
Yeah,
which is much more efficient time-wise, but they don't get to experience the real expedition of crossing the Drake.
Oh God! I wonder what it was like for for Drake when he went across. I mean, you've got stabilizers, you've got state-of-the-art rafts. Dare I say, if you had to take another journey off the ship, but those days. Poof.
I can't imagine, and obviously the really famous one is Shackleton, and you look at the boats, the ships that they used, and they all had a kind of a round bottom and a shallow draft so they could get into places, which makes them even more unstable in those conditions. And it must have been horrendous. I don't know how they managed it. We have this wonderful captain, a guy from Finland, Captain Peak, and he's the best. But he actually said in his talk, if it wasn't for the stabilizers, he'd probably go and get a job somewhere else, because it can be pretty rough down there.
God, that makes you feel comfortable. Well, probably does make you feel confident actually with the captain. Those stabilizers, they do make a lot of difference, don't they? We mentioned this in the conversation before, so I'm covering some ground that we've already covered, but just in case you haven't heard. See, I wasn't aware. Now, when I went on the Queen Mary, which is a proper ocean-going liner, that thing can take waves really well. I think there's something like 15-meter waves it's been tested in or something, which is a hell of a swell and a bit more. But the stabilizers, they are not what I thought they were. And initially, I'd always thought that they were these sort of jets that were spraying out, or I don't know why, but they are wings, aren't they? They retract into the hull, and a lot of ships, I'm told, cruise ships, I don't know about the Queen Mary, but a lot of cruise ships actually retract them because, of course, it adds to the drag, and fuel efficiency is not so good. So, but you don't really want a captain that does that. You want to be you want to be sure that you're using stabilizers when you really need them, because these things flutter, don't they? They sort of flap up and down, and they counteract the roll. It's so clever. It's really clever, and they're a lifesaver. I really wouldn't want to be on a ship without them. And but it helps with the sideways roll, but the bow crashing up and down. Oh no, you can't. It doesn't help with that. So it's a lifesaver, but still, it can be pretty rough out there. Yeah. And I'm very confident. I've been in this ship in much more extreme conditions. One time we ran a hurricane across there, and it was probably 30, 40-foot waves at least. And it was kind of white knuckles for the captain at the time, because he had to keep the bow right into the waves. But we made it fine. And but it's always a bit of a worry. My cabin is down in the sort of the depths of the ship, and I have a tiny little porthole which is just above water level. Yeah. And things are getting bad when one of the crew comes along with a big wrench and closes the porthole and bolts it closed. It's like, okay, something bad's about to happen. I've seen that porthole scene in Titanic. You don't want to be in that room. Shouldn't perhaps be so flippant about that. I appreciate. But certainly you want to be lower down anyway. If cruise advice from somebody who's done one transatlantic voyage, and you, of course, have done so many voyages, you want to be as low as you can. I don't personally understand. So the beautiful suites and the lovely, lovely spaces that you can have as a cabin on the Queen Mary, to me they appeared to be on decks 8, 9 and 10 or something. Whereas I was on deck, was it 3 or 4? 4 I think it was, which is just, it's very low. And you don't really feel the roll. But if you're up with where the money is, then they've got the sway.
They do.
It seems the wrong way around to me.
It is a bit that way, yes. I'm very glad of my crew cabin way down in the bottom of the ship.
Yeah. Thanks very much. We'll stick to that. So it was a success then. How many people did you eventually talk with as you did your voyage?
Yes, expedition, not a cruise.
Expedition. It's not a cruise. I know. I got told off for this when I was talking about the Queen Mary, actually.
We cycled through 3 lots of guests, so probably around 400 people. We took on adventures, and I gave lectures and talks and sort of behind the scene talks of working for National Geographic, and some of the crazy adventures that we've talked about, all those near-death experiences that are the ones that they really love. The late night in the bar, giving a talk and them listening to all of those crazy things that have happened.
Be honest, do you embellish them slightly?
Well, we have this thing called the Circle of Truth. So there's this little circle podium type thing in the middle of the room, and I very much sort of say. And it's named the Circle of Truth because everyone gives their talks from there. But it's like, I always warn you, like, if I'm in the circle, it's true. If I step out of it, some of it may have actually happened.
Yes.
I try not to, because the thing is, I have to retell these stories again and again to different groups. So I better get it right. And I think somebody's going to catch me if I start embellishing too much. So
that's true.
The truth is easier, and the truth has been pretty crazy anyway.
What is the nearest meet thy maker experience that you've almost had when working for National Geographic? I mean, is it a real Darwin moment, or?
Oh, I've won many Darwin Awards, I think. I don't know if we talked about it. I mean, the worst or the sketchiest thing was probably falling off a cliff in the Kimberley in Australia. I don't know if we talked about that one.
Did we talk about that one? Don't know.
Maybe
tell me that again. I'm intrigued. I have heard it. I'm going to tell you at the end whether you've stepped outside the circle of truth.
Yes, and please stop me if I've told you this one.
I feel I should have a T-shirt that says, "Stop me if I've told you this before."
Yeah. Well, as usual with TV, I was set on a mission to find a new species of very large venomous snake in Australia.
Oh, God.
In the most remote corner of Australia.
Don't they feel they've got enough that they should need to hunt for more?
No, they needed one more, I guess.
They've got 9 of the most venomous, haven't they? Were you looking for the 10th?
Pretty much, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we took 3 days to get there. It was ever decreasingly small planes, and then a helicopter dropped us off on the Kimberley coast, a place called the Hunter River. And you're 3 days from help, basically. So if anything goes wrong, in those days we had an EPIRB from a boat, so an emergency beacon we could pull, at which point a helicopter would come to rescue you. But
it's not going to get to you if you need anti-venom, is it?
It isn't, and expedition's over, everyone has to leave. You're kind of done if you do that. So it's kind of a last resort.
Yes.
It's a place a bit like in the American West with slot canyons. There's these sort of beautiful sandstone canyons, big canyon with a waterfall where we were camped, and then slot canyons running from the sides of this thing. And we soon figured out that the prime habitat for this snake was going to be on the top of the cliffs above the main waterfall. We were camped down below. Had a lot of camera gear, put it all in a backpack. Friend Craig was with me, and he's the herpetologist, and herpetologists always get me in trouble. And
herpetologist being a snake person.
Yes, a snake person, a reptile guy, but they love to push the limits sometimes.
I've seen them actually in Australia, where they bring these things right to their faces. You think, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, they love it. It's addictive.
Yeah.
Well, that day we hiked up the canyon, the side of the canyon, got to a slot canyon, and it would have probably been a 2-mile trip to get around the slot canyon. But you're losing light. It's early morning. You want to catch that beautiful light, and there was a big tree laying across the slot canyon, which is only probably 25 feet wide.
Well,
tree. I don't like the way giant tree.
Okay.
And we kind of looked at it and thought, we could save a bit of time if, we just walked across this giant tree.
Oh, no.
So Muggins here went first, backpack and all. And
they sent you with a backpack on as well.
I had a whole video camera system and still camera, and a big pack on my back and food for the day and water. And Craig said it was a bit like the Wile E. Coyote cartoon. You got halfway across and then your eyes got really big.
Oh.
And it was this terrible cracking sound. it turned out the tree, which was very large, had actually been eaten out with termites. So it was big, but it was wafer thin. I got halfway across, the tree just snapped in the middle. And I went down, the tree went down, fell about 40, 50 feet into the canyon. Fortunately, there was another tree sticking out the side of the canyon with this sort of jagged branch on it. Yeah. And I got impaled through the leg, hanging upside down instead of falling to the bottom. It saved my life, but there I am, hanging upside down. Impaled with a backpack on. And as herpetologists do, this guy thought it was the funniest thing he'd seen all day, and he's standing on the edge of the cliff laughing.
You're not about to tell me that was the moment that the 10th most venomous snake in the world appeared to have a look.
No, fortunately. But I did have to sort of unimpale myself from the tree.
Oh, what?
Didn't have a rope, so then I had to climb up the side of the cliff.
Yes.
And I actually had to kind of sew my own leg up that day, so it was kind of a rough day.
Blood and everything going on.
Oh yeah. And I didn't go near an edge for a few days. No cliff edges for a few days.
I'm not surprised.
But we then got to the top of the cliff and we actually found that new species of snake, and it was brought back.
What was the snake?
It's a relative of a brown snake, which is a common venomous snake in Australia, but this is a kind of a subspecies that lives just in this region. So kind of cool that there's such big and sort of charismatic animals still to be discovered.
Am I right in thinking the brown snake is the most tricky one of the whole lot for the venom? Am I wrong with that one?
No, I think probably a taipan has the edge on it. It's
that's right.
They're all pretty dangerous, and it's like, which one of the top 10 do you want to? They're all potentially going to kill you. It's just how quickly. But I tell you, the other thing we did find on that trip, another new species as well, and that was almost more horrifying.
Oh,
there were caves up there that were full of bats, and of course, we had to go in and have a look, as you do. And there was giant spiders running around on the walls of the cave that were eating the bats. And they're basically these big, brutishly strong spiders. They don't really need venom because they're just very strong and have a big set of fangs on them. We had a Tupperware box, so we threw away the sandwiches, got the Tupperware and put it over the spider and shoved the lid underneath and brought it back to the camp. Put it on a rock when we got back there. The thing was, almost the size of a dinner plate.
Well, hang on, a Tupperware box that you take your sandwiches in does not sound large enough to be trapping a spider that size.
Its legs were kind of sticking out the side. We had to sort of, tuck it in a little bit to get it in there.
I'm sure there are people that don't like spiders right now sort of quaking in fear listening to it.
They would have quaked when we put it on the rock. It just sat there, and it was covered in very long black hairs.
Yeah.
And as you walked around it, all the hairs oriented to where you were. It was very freaky, this thing.
So it followed you round with its hairs, as if there were eyes on the end of each of the strands.
I think it must use those hairs to locate bats when it's hunting in the cave.
Well, of course, it would have been in the dark, wouldn't it be? So some sort of echolocation thing-ish going on. Yeah.
Yep. Motion sensing. Wow. Amazing.
And was that? Did you say that was an unknown species as well? You did, didn't you? Yeah.
It was. It was. Yeah, an unknown species. Yeah. So kind of successful trip. Good film came out of it, and 2 new species. So pretty cool.
But is it right that when you find new species, you're allowed to name them after yourself? So do you have some sort of horrible venomous spider running around called the Wrightius legius or something?
I wish. No, Craig, the guy I was with, should actually have had it named after him. Right. But I think a biologist back in Perth actually kind of pinched the name. He named it, and he named it after himself, which is a bit cheeky. And
you bring the spoils home, and he claims it. Charming.
Yeah, and the snake was named after a gentleman who was this herpetologist boss back home, who I'd actually been up there with before, and he'd seen it and identified it, but hadn't brought one back. So that was named after him, which was kind of a nice thing to do because he had, in a sense, discovered it.
There may be some people in the room, as it were, saying, you've just taken a spider out in a Tupperware box or whatever, and you haven't released it to the wild. We're not talking born free here, are we? It is important to, when you find new species, to bring them back to study them.
It is. With an endangered species, obviously it'd be very different. These are not in any way endangered. I'm sort of there to document it, so I don't really have a say. But it's very often that they have to have this sort of type species that you go back and they have to, weigh it, measure it, identify it, and, document it to, put it on the record and sort of, in a sense, prove that it's a new species.
Yes.
And that snake, went on to have a nice, happy life at a reptile park in Sydney, but I'm sure would have preferred to be back in the wild where it came from.
Wow. And actually, venom is one of those very powerful. What would you call it? Powerful venom? No, powerful is a venom. One of those things that is used a lot in medicine, isn't it? Venom, not just for anti-venom, but for other things as well, isn't it? I think snake's venom has been proved to be very potent for using to cure all sorts of diseases or help.
It has. It's a very, very potent cocktail of, and I believe there has been all sorts of medical uses that have been found from it. So it's an interesting area of research. And I have a friend here in the US who has an extensive collection of venomous snakes from around the world, and that's pretty much all he does is milk snakes to provide venom for medical research. Incredible stuff.
Before we move on to the next part of our conversation, I wanted to linger at this venom thing. Venom has an image problem, doesn't it? You say the word, most people picture fangs and panic, and pretty much what I did during the conversation there. Fair enough, though. Venom's built to stop things very quickly. That's the whole point of venom, isn't it? But once you get past that stuff, it turns out that venom is one of the most useful substances we've ever stumbled across. What makes venom interesting to researchers is precision. Venoms are not blunt instruments. They're cocktails of molecules that do very specific jobs in the body. Some block pain signals, some affect blood clotting, some interfere with nerve communication. Evolution has spent millions of years fine-tuning these things. Not for our benefit, of course, but nevertheless, we've learned how to harness this. One of the earliest medical successes came from snake venom research. Drugs used to treat high blood pressure were developed after scientists noticed how certain venoms caused a dramatic drop in blood pressure in prey. The venom didn't just overwhelm the system, it targeted it. And that insight changed how those conditions were treated. And if you're somebody who takes tablets every morning, you can trace that origin back to a snake bite that never happened. Spider venom has played a part too. Some compounds are being studied for chronic pain relief, particularly pain that doesn't respond well to existing medication. Even cone snails, which look harmless enough until they're not, have contributed. One venom-derived drug is already used for severe pain, administered in tiny amounts directly where it's needed. Medical science is amazing, isn't it? Substances evolve to harm, becoming tools to heal, through the patience and the willingness to look at nature without assuming it's either friend or enemy. Tell me, before we move on to penguins and things that aren't likely to... Well, actually, penguins can have a bit of a temper, I've heard. But before we move on to them, have you ever... you're going to say no, and it's going to ruin the conversation immediately, but have you ever come eye to eye with an anaconda while we're talking about snakes? And because those I see occasionally I see films made about anacondas. Now, of course, there is the film Anaconda, where this thing is just ridiculously large. But they are huge creatures, and they drive the fear of God into people who come across them.
Oh, for sure. I've been close to one, but closer to big pythons in Australia, which are just as big, and they are a fearsome creature. I mean, it's got the sort of head the size of a dog and the teeth the same sort of size too. Yeah. I remember being close to one of those pythons out in the wild, and a gentleman gave me the lid from a dustbin, trash can lid, right, to use as a shield. And he said, keep this handy. And sure enough, that snake went to strike me, and I used that as a shield, and it damn near knocked me over. It was like Mike Tyson punching you. I mean, it nearly knocked me off my feet when that thing struck, and it hit the trash can lid, the dustbin lid. And
I applaud you for your reaction. That's no.
Adrenaline's an amazing thing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it actually is. When you were much younger than you are now, the mini David without the beard, were you always into creatures? Because now when you film, when you go places, you're seeing things that most of us will never see. And I'm quite pleased not to see spiders that can eat bats in caves, but you see the most extraordinary creatures, which I would love to see. But did you always have that about you? Was there something that thought, yeah, one day I want to travel? I don't know whether... Did you grow up with Attenborough as well? You probably did, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the defining moments is that classic scene of him sitting with the mountain gorillas, you know? And
yes.
I think from that moment I was hooked.
Yeah.
I also kind of spent a lot of time as a child on a farm, and so I was always around animals, and always had a dog or a cat in my life or whatever. You know, I just love animals and being close to them. And we've talked about the bear project that I did. You know, I just love that sort of idea of, in a sense, habituating wild animals and being close to them, and being way closer than I would suggest anybody should be. But yeah, I just have a love and I guess a sort of propensity to just be able to, I don't know, just a skill set I've developed over the years to get close to animals and in a non-threatening way, and just allow their behavior to continue so that I can do the work that I do.
Yeah, I don't know whether we chatted about this before. I have chatted recently with somebody about this, but David Yarrow was a guest on the show, and he talked about getting between, unwittingly, not knowing he was doing it, getting between two bears. Mama bear, who was in the bush behind him somewhere, and a small bear that was having a bit of fun in the water in front of him. And then he was between the two. I don't know whether it was you and I that talked about that, but there's that knowledge of knowing what to do in that moment, which does not include getting up and running for your life.
Right. And I've been in that situation a lot, mostly with black bears, but yeah, and it's just, it's kind of keeping your head, which is tough, and also trying to avoid the situation where you, in any way, you're doing anything that might threaten the safety of the bear. For example, a cub, being separated from its mother, and it's going to give out an alarm call, and that could get you in serious trouble. So it's best to be avoiding that. But saying that, I've been with black bears in the forest and been 5 feet from a mother with cubs, and the cubs come over and they try and steal your camera bag, and they're kind of just, I mean, in no way malicious. They're just playful, and they just want to have fun, and sort of they'll try and steal stuff and run away with it, and you're struggling, holding one end of the camera strap, and the bear's got the other. You've got to let it go.
Of course, they're north, not south, but polar bear. If you were going to have a bear that just couldn't give two hoots for playfulness, it would be the polar bear, wouldn't it? That would be the one that there's no whether you lie on your belly and stay there and pretend it's not there or not. It's early bath time, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time with polar bears, and I spent 2 years living in Svalbard doing a geographic film on polar bears, and yeah, I mean, potentially they're very, very dangerous, and you could be lunch. But at the same time, and again, forgive me if I've told you this story, but we had bears there that kind of got to know us because we were out filming so regularly, and I was out one day by myself watching a mother with 2 or 3 cubs, and the biggest threat to those cubs is a male polar bear. And the thing that they kind of realize is there's sort of a safe zone around people, I think, sometimes.
Okay.
I mean, we had to carry a rifle, and I think the bears sort of sense that, no male polar bear is going to go near that person because he's armed, and, there's a safe zone. So that mother bear got to the point where she would bring the cubs over 20 or 30 yards from me, dig a little bit of a hole, bed them down, get them to go to sleep, and then she'd walk off 2 miles across the sea ice and start hunting seals. And I would sort of sit there with them and be filming with a long lens of her hunting in the distance, and have, a couple of 3 sleeping polar bear cubs right next to me.
In essence, you've become the babysitter for her cubs.
Exactly.
Do they pay well, the polar bears?
Terrible. Well, they pay very well in images. So she provided some great footage.
That's true. That's a good point. What an honour, though, to have an animal trust you to, because that is animal-human interaction of trust, isn't it? Without a doubt. There's no accident that she's going to leave cubs near you.
No accident. It was completely intentional, and Yeah, I mean, I do think it is trust, and I think people don't understand how smart, how emotional, how understanding animals are, and that there is a possibility of those kind of relationships, potentially very dangerous as well. You know, you have certainly 1 in 500 polar bears is going to try and eat you, but most of the time we could be around them, and if they did get too close, they were pretty easy to scare by just making a noise. We talked last time about the meatballs getting thrown across the window.
Oh, God, yeah.
Bang some saucepans together and they'll probably take off. Yeah, so it's, they were fun to be around. Definitely need to be doing it with an expert.
Well, I hope if I'm ever around them, I'm standing behind you.
We should do that sometime. Let's go on a trip.
I trust you more than I would trust myself in knowing what to do. Talking about this wonderful relationship, we will get on to Antarctica, but talking about this wonderful relationship that wildlife, animals have with us, creatures have with us. You sent me the film Finding Freedom, which I will do a link for the show page, if that's right. Is it for public consumption now?
It is, yeah.
The hawk and the man in the film. It's a beautiful story. Did you shoot the whole thing? Is that completely yours?
It is, yeah. And it's I apologize in advance for people that look at it because it's a bit long. It needs to be shorter.
I didn't think that at all, actually. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Well, thank you. I mean, it started out, and it's probably something we're going to talk about, as a test for anamorphic lenses. And I just wanted to see if lenses that are more typically used for the movie business and very staged and choreographed scenes could be used in a more free-flowing documentary handheld world. So partly started out with that, realized how good the story was. Also, Steve, the gentleman in the film, is an old friend of mine, and soon realized that we were shooting a short film that would be an incredible gift for his family. Yes. And really it wasn't meant to be much more than that.
Well, what a beautiful gift.
Oh, they've been friends for over 30 years and just been, friends through and through for that 30 years and supported me in ways that I can't even ever thank them for. So it was kind of the least I could do. And, and it took on a life of its own because, as you know, sadly, the eagle passed away a few months after we'd finished shooting this. And it turns out the town, Statesboro, where Steve lives, the eagle was the mascot for the local football team, which is a big part of Southern culture. And the whole city was devastated when the eagle was lost. And the university, the football team, the city, and suddenly I put the film on YouTube just for Steve and his family. And suddenly within 2 weeks, I was like 4,000 views. And it just kind of took on a life of its own.
Because he would sit there with the bird in the stadium, wouldn't he? In the stadium. Was that him with his granddaughter, I think, wasn't it? Which is a lovely, lovely scene.
Yeah. It was fabulous. I mean, it was wonderful to shoot. And it's funny how this timing of these things works out, that we shot that and captured that story. And then we lost poor old Freedom just a couple of months later, and it was just I think became a gift for Steve and his family, but I think many people in the city and that area suddenly it was a gift for them as well. Yeah. So hence so many views on YouTube. And
Finding Freedom sort of has a double-edged meaning to it, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's a whole story of trust, as we were just talking about, is kind of the theme of the story. So yes, absolutely, there's a much deeper meaning to it, and I hope people will kind of take a look at it and understand that and just see the connection that Steve has with the birds that he trains and the challenges of doing that with a peregrine or some sort of hawk or one thing, but when you take it to be a bald eagle, it just it ratchets up like 3 times, and it's so much harder. But that sort of trust and understanding is something that is just, I think, gone through Steve's whole life and approach to life, and raising kids and grandkids, and it's a beautiful story of just a yeah, just a kind of a belief system that has, I think, carried him through to be this wonderful human being that hopefully we captured in the film.
Well, you most certainly did. I didn't realise. I mean, he mentioned that it's the oldest sport and understanding between man and beast, isn't it? Really.
Yes. Hunting
absolutely. With birds, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happening in Mongolia.
Oh, that would be wonderful. That's a place I've always wanted to go. I actually was offered a trip a year or two back, and I turned it down. I think I was kind of double booked on something, and I regret not having gone on that trip, because I'd be there in a heartbeat.
I'll squeeze you into my suitcase.
Please do.
They are also very difficult to form a bond and understanding with, and I've seen it go wrong when they're being used for what I would call less than, I don't know. And I always had a difficulty when shooting weddings, seeing birds used for delivering rings down aisles. I never liked it. It felt to me exactly the same as when people walk with lions. There's me thinking, I'm not quite sure this is what this was made for.
Right.
And but I had to laugh when the last one I never saw it happen again. I'm sure it does, but I saw a falcon turn up. It took the ring down the aisle. It was an outdoor ceremony. You can tell what's going to happen now, can't you? And the bloody thing flew off with the ring. They did get it back 3 hours later, I think. But I thought, serves you right. I don't like seeing things used or birds used in that manner.
No. It's crazy. It crosses the line at a certain point, and that's sort of a stunt like that is probably not smart on many levels.
No. Anyway, right, come on, Antarctica. So first of all, in terms of what you used kit-wise, so we've talked about using new lenses, anamorphic lenses, and I'd be surprised you'd not used them on this sort of journey before. But was it a totally not totally new experience for you? You're a filmmaker, but for this kind of job.
I mean, it's only been the last year or so that I've really started using them, and the Finding Freedom project was kind of the first real outing with that, and so they are hard to use. There's no there's been some just last few weeks some developments, but essentially these lenses are completely manual, so no autofocus, no control of iris, and you're using prime lenses, and it makes it hard for documentary. You want a zoom lens that you can get a close-up and a wide and quickly capture stuff, and these days with autofocus it's fabulous to have eye detect and be able to nail it. It's all done.
So this is
it's old school,
super wide. When you go into a Cinemax or whatever the right expression is, when you see these really wide screens, that's anamorphic.
Yeah, the classic is, just to be technical, is 2.39 to 1 aspect ratio. So it's 2.5, almost 2.5 times wide as it is tall.
Right.
Is the aspect ratio. That's the kind of classic, which is what Finding Freedom was in, and I've just been shooting that aspect ratio down in the Antarctic. So I sort of set myself 2 missions. One was to do a sort of short film, which is just hopefully just beautiful images of the Antarctic. And then I shot still images as well, which is I shot in the classic X-Pan format, the beautiful old film cameras that were 65:24 aspect ratio. So was just living in this kind of widescreen world while I was down there, but the landscape and the wildlife just kind of lent themselves to that. So I think you may have already seen them. So I've already put an album of the photographs online, I'll get to the editing as soon as I can, hopefully in the next week or two of the short film as well. I don't know, everything just looks better in that widescreen format.
Well, it's an amazing format, isn't it? And there's a lot of drama to. I mean, a lighthouse picture is one example of that. You get so much detail of the landscape. I don't mean detail as in looking at the crags, although you probably can. But I mean seeing the scene as you would with your own eyes as you pan to the left and right naturally. I mean, I know we don't see in an anamorphic sense, but it feels to me more like the way we see.
I think it does, and I've just been had a demo with the Apple ProVision headset, which has like a 270-degree angle that you can kind of look around.
Yeah.
And I've been sort of intrigued to try the cameras that create that, because I do think it does sort of emulate how you kind of see the world. And I know, it just feels more epic, if I'm honest, as well.
Well, there's a wonderful picture of you get an isolation about the pictures, which I'm not sure that you would get if there was any less width on it. There's a penguin standing on its own. There's the sea mist, and it's a gentle tidal picture. Do you know the one I mean, where it's just standing there like it's complete, hello, where is everybody? But you get that feeling of isolation, which you don't get when the photograph is your standard aspect ratio.
No, absolutely. And by the way, that's not sea mist. We're actually standing in an active caldera of a volcano, and that's steam rising out of the beach from the magma that's not far underneath the ground.
How far underneath the beach is the magma there?
I don't have an actual number for you, but close enough that it's warming up the water on the beach and turning it to steam. So it's pretty close.
Yeah. Oh well, the penguin's all right then. It's thinking this is nice and warm for this time of year.
Oh, it's actually funny that obviously we were dealing with cold temperatures, but you could actually put your hand in the water there in the ocean, and it's like a bathtub. Tell
me, what are the buildings that I find in there? Because there's some really intriguing, rusting old. I don't know what they would be. Some sort of container for holding oil or fuel of some sort. And then you've got the buildings that have seen better days that are gradually falling back into nature. Yeah, it's a place called Deception Island, and it's an old whaling station. It was, I think, second biggest whaling station, or sort of series of whaling stations anywhere. And that particular place had 300 people living at its height. And they were processing whales, and those giant, there's like, I think, fuel storage, and also the kind of apparatus that they use for boiling down the whale blubber to make the whale oil as well. Obviously, fortunately, that's all long since gone away, but they basically just abandoned the place. There was actually a pretty big eruption. The thing is literally an active volcano, and it's a caldera with a sort of bay in the middle of it, and the landslides that caused by the eruption basically cleaned out most of the buildings, but that's, you're just seeing what's left. But hence also some of them a little bit sort of out of shape and turned 45 degrees on their end. So it's ruins from the whaling era, and kind of incredible to see the lengths that people went to get whale oil and how important it once was. And but obviously wonderful to see that it's long since disappeared, and it's just a kind of a monument to those times. So these would have been huge vats and storage facilities for whale oil, would they?
Yeah. There's both. Some of them are, I think, were for fuel oil to actually power the little community that was down there, and then some of them are also for just storing the whale oil that was then shipped out. And,
when you land on an island like this, now I know there are very strict rules as to what you can touch, what you can take. I think you have to wear something on your feet, don't you, as well?
It's got very strict, and that's because of the avian, the bird flu that has been kind of going around the world, but has particularly impacted some of those Antarctic islands. And so it used to be that you could kneel or lay down to take a low angle shot. And now basically, we have to decontaminate all clothing and boots before we even go on an island. And then pretty much only your feet. And you can use a tripod, but you have to disinfect the tripod as well. Right. It's the only thing allowed to touch the ground. So you're not allowed to kneel or crouch, because there's a fear that you might pick up something that's contaminated with bird flu and then could take it across the island, but probably more importantly, you could transport it to another island and cause an infection there. And it's a lot of birds have suffered, but the thing that's really suffered are things like elephant seals, which have seen a huge mortality in their young ones. I believe in certain colonies, almost been a complete failure of breeding in the last couple of years because the elephant seal pups get this disease and they just don't make it.
Well, in a technical sense, that's where tilt screens have made all the difference, isn't it? That you can still get these wonderful low camera angles that you're clearly getting, but at the same time protecting and observing and respecting the wildlife and the rules that you have when you land on these islands. As a leader, is it harder looking after people or giving them the space to make their photographs. Because you've made these extraordinary pictures yourself. Clearly you've been filming there as well. I don't know how you managed to do the both. I find it very hard when I'm leading teams to do both. I want to make my own pictures.
It is a little bit of a struggle. I mean, we have the advantage that often there's a team of naturalists on board the ship, and I join them, and often we'll do a little scouting trip as we arrive somewhere, partly because you want to make sure there's no bird flu outbreak, because you don't want to kind of step into a situation and then carry that somewhere else. So we get to go ashore, scout the area, and often I'll shoot my images then. And then once the people come ashore, you pretty much are kind of looking after them, making sure they're safe, and also then making sure the penguins are safe and all the seals or whatever is on the island. So yeah, it's kind of a juggling game. A lot of the time is spent looking after people and squeezing in the moments when you can get a bit of photography done or a bit of filming done. So I'm there. I try to be some of the first people on the beach. That's be me, and I'll stay right to the end. And in the little moments where there's a gap, I'll run away and take photographs.
I wrote down two words here that didn't form a question in the end, but I'm going to clumsily find my way around them to see if it makes sense when I say this. But I'd written down emotional struggle, and what I mean by that is, for a lot of people going to these places, this is the only time they will go in their life. And I know that because I've spoken to somebody recently who had made that journey. And I think when I look at these photographs and I see scenes that you may not ever see again in your life, that it would be, perhaps not struggle is the wrong word, but it would be emotionally very challenging for people. I
think it is. I mean, it's such a special experience to be somewhere like that.
Yeah, you bet.
And probably is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for most people. I am exceedingly lucky to do the work that I do and be able to go to these places and then share it with people. But I think it is. I mean, I see people, it literally brings tears to their eyes to be there and experience it and hear the sounds of a penguin colony. And hopefully they go back and they're kind of an ambassador for the place. I mean, it is the biggest protected area on the planet. And so, it's great to, in a sense, create these ambassadors to show the value of conservation and of saving this place. So,
what does a penguin colony, and I assume colonies can change shape and size, but what does it sound like?
It is kind of a cacophony of calls. They love to sing, and you'll see in some of the photographs there's heads that are thrown back.
That's right. Yeah.
Often they're very vocal because they sort of, they're very proud little birds, and they kind of want to say, I'm the biggest and best. I've got the best nest, and some of it's attracting a mate. Yeah. They make pebble nests, and they're very, very particular about collecting pebbles and bringing them back. I'm very proud of them. But one of the biggest problems in the colony is that your neighbor wants to steal your pebbles. Oh. So some of the sound is also them squabbling and, like fighting over a pebble, and one will distract one. And then, it's basically that. And then they also carry on a lot. There's a lot of predators there too. There's other birds like skuas and giant petrels that will try and grab a chick. And as soon as one of those birds flies over the colony, all the penguins throw their heads back and, they start calling and carrying on just to try and scare away the skua. And so it's kind of deafening sometimes. I mean, a lot of colonies we went to was relatively small, birds in the hundreds, but some of them are, I think the biggest colony we went to on this trip, which is not big in a way, but the biggest we went to was probably 10,000 birds. And it's quite incredible. Quite incredible visually and the sound. And also I will say it's a little bit on the nose, as they say, as well.
Oh, is there a pungentness to it?
There is.
A pungenicity or whatever the phrase is. I remember watching, might have been Attenborough, I don't know, but there is obviously a reality to how nature works. Do the sea lions sometimes come and attack the colonies?
So you have things like fur seals there sometimes. Things like elephant seals wouldn't, but certainly in other places, I think there are fur seals that will attack a penguin, but the big thing there is leopard seals. And leopard seals will pursue the penguins, but in the water. And that's always quite the thing. But it's kind of bizarre because we did see leopard seals pulled out on the ice, on ice floes, and penguins standing all around them.
Oh.
So it's only game on once they're in the water, but if they're up on the land, they'll sit 3 feet from each other. And I think the penguins know that the seal is not very agile on land, so they can get away. And they are incredibly quick in water. I mean, penguins are these comical, cute little guys that look like they hop and they jump, and they're just so cute to watch. But put them in the water, and they're like little rocket ships. And so I think it's pretty hard for a seal to catch one. Yeah. We also saw a pod of orcas that were hunting penguins, and it was quite something. And they do catch them, but the penguins, look like they could outrun them.
The other thing we've been talking about the cacophony of the noise you get from a colony of penguins, but what about those quieter moments? I'm sure there must be some where I was talking only recently with who was it? I apologise now, but I was talking recently with one of our wonderful extra milers who had this fantastic picture of an iceberg, and it was slightly snowing. She was the first out on the deck of a morning, and then there was a pod of whales close by. And there was it was silent, but it was an incredible experience.
Oh no, for sure. And I shouldn't share this secret, but there's a time when basically we have to restrict the number of guests that can be on shore at any one time.
Yes, of course.
And we generally divide it into 2. Yeah. So there's this time where the first group of guests have gone, and there's probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes before the next ones will arrive in the zodiacs from the ship. And I always try and place myself as far into the colony or wherever we are as possible, just so I can stand and listen to the sounds of the place. And, whether it be penguins, but sometimes we're near a glacier and you can hear the ice cracking and groaning. And often there are many of the places there were humpback whales right offshore feeding. And you can hear the whoosh of the sound of the blow of the whale, or sometimes the sounds of them singing as well, even on shore. So I cherish those moments, absolutely.
Well, it was Wendy Brandon that was in Antarctica and shared that story of the silence and the snow and the... it had me want to go there straight away. Anything that you've seen this time that you weren't expecting? Any surprises? Anything where you thought, I was not... Now, that can be a good or a bad thing sometimes, because that can often be, I didn't want to see the ice in that state.
There's a little bit of that, and over the years I've seen the ice definitely retreat in places, but I think for me the unexpected times on this trip were the number of whales that we saw. We had one evening where we'd already had an incredible day at a penguin colony. Felt like the day couldn't get any better. Yeah. And then we got back and, it's like, okay, go have a shower, get changed and go and have dinner. And suddenly there was an announcement that there was humpback whales off the bow of the ship. Ran up there with the video camera, actually, and there was probably 30 humpback whales.
Good Lord.
That just surrounded the ship and were feeding, but they were doing the lunge feeding thing where they create a bubble net, and then they come up through the bubbles and just, grab huge mouthfuls of krill and go down. And it was just, we sat there for 45 minutes watching that, and it was absolutely magical because you could hear, despite the sound of the ship, you could hear the whales singing, you could hear the bubbles, you could hear the blow of the whale when it came up to breathe. The guests were beyond happy. I mean, it was sensational. I've never seen that many humpbacks in one place feeding like that. Yeah. And absolutely magical. And what we do is you can photograph the fluke, the tail on the whale, and they're all very distinctive. So we got great photographs of the tails as they were going down. And there's an organization called Happy Whale, and you can send in these images, and they actually identify the whales from and one was last spotted off the coast of Ecuador, and it had migrated down there for the Antarctic summer to feed on the krill. And then several of the whales had not been identified before, so you could actually sponsor a whale if you found a new one, and people did on the ship, and they get to name the whale, and then they can follow their whale and see where it migrates around the world. So it's really fun and amazing to see the distances these animals are traveling.
I wonder how much it changes you as I don't mean you, I mean as in those that were traveling with you, you as a person when you're in the midst of this, you realize you're a visitor, not an observer. You find a different place for yourself in the world than what you thought you perhaps were.
I hope so. That would be wonderful. And that's kind of the aim of the trip. And as I say, I mean, hopefully we create sort of ambassadors for the place, and that then that ethos kind of carries on, once they're home. And certainly it has for me. It's really, it makes you feel small. It makes a little bit insignificant, but you realize the importance of these wild places. And it is kind of life-changing to be in that and feel so small in such a wild place. And just realize what an incredible world we live in, and that we do need to conserve these places.
When I go to a gallery, one of the most interesting things for me is to stand behind people, which makes me sound a bit odd and a bit weird, I appreciate, but I'm always interested, and maybe it's the audio man in me, to hear what people say as much as watching them look and myself looking at the work. I'm intrigued by what the conversation is of an evening dinner, because sitting with you is a bit like sitting with a captain. I'm sure that you're in demand. I would have thought, as a National Geo photographer, people want to know what it takes to be in your shoes, and I'm sure you're getting tapped up constantly for, how do I do this, Dave? How do I get into this job? Give me the silver bullet. Show me the route.
Oh, there's definitely that. And most evenings host a dinner and try and kind of meet as many of the guests as we can. And a few of them do say, oh, can I be your assistant and carry your bags? At which point I show them on my phone, I have pictures of the 15 Pelican cases that I, travel with normally. And I have to take a picture so I remember how many I had on any particular trip, which then generally scares most of them away. But there's still a few hardy ones that want to do it. But I do think I see a change in that. I think people, they come from their busy world and they're out on the deck on the first day that they see a whale, and they're all chattering and talking about when they saw a whale 3 years ago, and they're not really in the moment often at the start. They're sort of watching, but they're still talking to people and kind of explaining, oh, I did this 3 years ago. Yeah. By the end of the trip, there's been a transformation, and they've realized that you need to slow down and just watch and listen and kind of soak it in. So it's lovely to kind of see that change in people during the trip, that they have a growing appreciation for it. And I think you understand that sort of the sounds of the place really are so atmospheric, and it's they miss that when they talk too much at the beginning, and then by the end they're like wanting to find a quiet place to soak it in, and it's lovely to see that transformation.
I was listening to, it might have been YouTube, could have been, but I was listening to a pod of whales singing. It is the most extraordinary noise. And noise is not the right word, but it's an extraordinary sound. I wonder if somebody in any of your groups looks back, you might have answered this to an extent, but in 10 years' time, what do you hope they remember beyond the photographs?
I mean, well, it's a good question. I think probably, I hope they remember how sort of untouched the place is, and but in a sense, how fragile it is, and how important it is to protect it, and how, in a way, linked the polar regions are to, even us on the East Coast in the US, and just how interlinked everything is. And they start to understand that. I think back to being up in the polar regions around Svalbard and in the Arctic, and realizing that the North Atlantic drift, which comes up the East Coast of the US and then comes by the UK and then ends up in the Arctic, is in a sense the air conditioner for the United States, because that warm water goes up and goes to the Arctic and cools and then comes back down again. And you suddenly start to realize how these places are all interwoven. And, with climate change, there's a possibility that the North Atlantic drift could collapse. There's even signs of that already. And that would be devastating for the United States. The UK would see huge effects if that went away. And,
What would
So
what would that collapse look like? What would it take for that collapse to actually happen?
I mean, I think that's to do with temperature change, and there's already evidence of it, and that's a very dangerous situation because it would spark completely different weather patterns. It, in a sense, moderates weather, I think you might say, is a simple way of putting it. So, we might see more storms, but drier weather, and it would impact agriculture greatly, certainly in the United States. And, I've been to places in the UK where they've, you go to the west coast of Scotland, and it's definitely kind of, the weather is probably warmer and moderated because of that sea current. So that would all change.
Have you noticed those that are in the sea, the whales, the dolphins? I always think of that funny sketch in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know whether you're a fan of Douglas Adams.
Yep.
And when the Earth is going to be destroyed by the Vogon fleet making way for a hyperspace bypass or something. The dolphins knew that this was going to happen years ago and decided to leave the planet. How they do it, I can't remember, but they leave a farewell message, which is so long and thanks for all the fish. And I wonder I wonder whether they feel this, they know this, that their habits are changing, the way that you see them, where you see them.
I mean, I'm not aware of it so much down in the Antarctic with kind of some of the ocean life, but definitely even in the time I've been down there, which is probably 15 years since I started traveling there, penguin colonies have shifted quite dramatically, driven by the fact that ocean temperatures might be 2 degrees different, but then the food source for the penguins moves, so therefore the penguins have to move. So colonies are shifting quite dramatically year by year. So definitely big changes, and those animals are definitely aware of it and trying to adapt. And there'll be some winners and there'll be some losers, and it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Do you have hope? I've asked this question. I think of those who are ecologists and photographers in that world, National Geo. I haven't asked it for a while actually, and I always sort of peer from behind my fingers when I say it, just in case I get to hear something I don't want to hear from somebody who really knows these places.
If I'm honest, I have a lot of fear about it, but at the same time, I guess I'm sort of the person that latches on to hope and keeps hope because I feel like I have to, don't have any choice. And so I do have hope. I do see a lot of changes, but animals adapting, but a lot of animals are going to lose out. A lot of wild spaces are going to be lost or changed dramatically. And it's happening at a rate far beyond what is natural in the world. So yeah, I mean, I do have a lot of fear, if I'm honest, but without hope, I don't know, I just couldn't keep on doing what I'm doing. So I'm just latched onto it.
I'd like to take a wild left turn at the traffic lights, actually, at this stage. You've got a really interesting opportunity, stroke workshop, stroke chance to meet and photograph alongside you in Argentina. Can I check my diary and how much money I would need to sell parts of my body for so I can go on it? I'd love to go to Buenos Aires. You're doing a photo workshop there this coming year, aren't you? Can I share? Will you be okay for me to share this particular gallery on the show page?
Oh, absolutely. That'd be an honor.
So yeah, it's you and it's Elizabeth Elliot and Tom Donahue, isn't it? That's right.
Yes. So my partner Elizabeth, old friend from Geographic days, Tom, who moved down to Buenos Aires some years ago, fabulous filmmaker, but also teaches tango on the side too. So a multi-talented gentleman.
Yeah.
And
have you and Elizabeth learned a bit of tango from him? Are you?
No, that's that's in the plan. Although I have 2 left feet and can't dance to save my life, she's very talented. So I'm absolutely hopeless, and I'm sure that's
not true. I've seen them,
it's absolutely true.
I've seen them turn around people that just can't dance for toffee on Strictly. I'm sure you'll come out an expert.
I'm not sure about that. It would be a miracle, but I often use the camera as kind of a shield to be in the situation, but not have to. Yeah, so I can take wonderful photographs of it, but
you have shot fashion, and let's not forget that you can shoot fashion and portraits. I do tend to think of you with your wild animals and your nasty bats in caves and stuff like that. But actually, this is a lovely occasion to learn to shoot portraiture in a beautifully historic city.
Oh, it's a wonderful place, and fell in love with it several years ago. I took Elizabeth there about a year ago, and she immediately just decided we need to move there. It's so beautiful, so historic, and the people are wonderful. And for me, I have this sort of not secret, but a love of portraiture, and kind of got diverted, as we spoke about on the first podcast. I had thought about delving into the fashion world as a career, and got diverted into the outdoor wildlife adventure world, and so I try and kind of delve back into that world as often as I can, or when I can. Buenos Aires has the most beautiful backdrops, and the people are fabulous, and particularly the tango dancers. So kind of cooked up this idea with my friend Tom that we should have a workshop, and it's all natural light probably, and incredible historic buildings, but these fabulous dancers who are the most beautiful people, as you can imagine. You'll see in the photographs, and literally those photographs I took in the space of about an hour, because my flight was delayed, and I thought, I'm going to make the most of this time. There was a huge snowstorm in the US, flights cancelled. What do? You go into town, you take pictures of tango dancers, and that was the result.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that because, it was kind of just some examples of the type of imagery that we'll hopefully be shooting on the workshop, and hopefully we can entice some people, and you'd be welcome to come along, and we'll.
Is it mainly natural light, or are you working with strobes or LEDs as well?
We had a very, very small LED to it didn't do much more than put a catchlight in the eye in those photographs. I mean, that's 90% natural light. I mean, literally, I was carrying the camera I had in the Antarctic with 2 lenses, and very ill-equipped, and just kind of working the natural light in this beautiful old home to capture what you see there. And hopefully we pulled it off. But I think next time I would plan a little bit more and actually bring some strobes or a little bit of more supplemental lighting. But it kind of worked as it was. And
do you have rules for portraits? I mean, I know some of these are. There's some dancing poses in there, but these are striking particularly of the chap. There's striking portraits of him looking out of windows. You're shooting through things along a corridor by the looks of it. I'm a real devout lover of when you shoot past something to photograph somebody within a scene. Layering is so often used, isn't it? I think some photographers have wince a little bit when the word layer is used, but that's what I'm essentially talking about here. That much more than simply a face, but a whole scene.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and I love that sort of just capturing a bigger story within an image like that. And you're right. I mean, some of those images are shot through 3 panes of Victorian glass with that kind of wavy sort of texture in them. So they're shot with a Hasselblad 100 megapixel, with a tack sharp lens, but it's got that wonderful kind of the deformation of the image through that glass, and I love that kind of look. I just prefer that sort of, it's a whole story just in one image, and I do aim for that in this sort of thing. And I think it's partly, it's not like it's classical fashion photography. I guess I'm still very influenced by street photography, and kind of try and blend those two together, and that sort of in the way that you see in those images.
Yeah. I was intrigued. These are all color photographs. Some of them would look just as beautiful as black and whites, of course, wouldn't they?
They would. I mean, literally, I've been back for 24 hours, so I haven't had time to play with them much. And Elizabeth actually was the one that did the kind of editing of the images, so she helped me do a quick selection, and then she sort of tidied them up a little bit and did a bit of minor editing on them to to create those, because I wanted to have something online for you for both the Antarctic images, but these.
Yeah.
But I think, yes, in the coming days, I will absolutely convert some to black and white. And I think they'll look great that way. And it's amazing what we captured in pretty much an hour of time. So given a week down there, I'm really hopeful that we can create something really special.
So do you have, is there a format to this week? Have you got it laid out the way that you want to do it yet?
We've got some strong ideas. I mean, I think we'd be based in the sort of older, the San Telmo area in the city, which is more the historic area. There's definitely some posher areas, but this has more character to it. Wonderful old buildings as backdrops. And I think we'll probably divide people up into small groups. There's enough models, people that we can photograph, that we can divide up, and you be 2 or 3 people heading off with a model into some of these locations. There'll also be the opportunity, which is a lost cause for me, but if you want a tango lesson, that'll be available too. So it'll partly be enjoying the culture, the food, the people, and if you want to learn how to do a little bit of tango, but essentially come back with some fabulous images of these people. We have a absolutely stunning young couple that are in those images, but we have another couple who are, I think, in their 80s. So we're going to bring them along as well. So we'll have all sort of age groups as models, and just some real characters.
Do you know, I'm really pleased you said that, because photographs of those that have matured and are into their own faces, as I spoke to a photographer recently, I love that expression. They're into their own faces now. They've grown into themselves. Is a really important part of photography, because when I should I mention this? Oh, I will. When I go to these big photo exhibitions and you see models that are posing for people with long, I just feel a bit creepy now mentioning that. But I've always thought, you know what? Get somebody who's really grown into themselves. Because they make the most incredible models. Absolutely. So yes, we'll absolutely kind of trying to capture that and have a spectrum of people there, and it is those moments. And I think there'll be great opportunities for street photography. Just wandering around town there, you see those people and those characters. And Buenos Aires and Argentina's got quite a history, but people are still with street photography, it's all about kind of just the attitude and the way you approach people, and people are very, very open to having their photograph taken there, and it's, I can't wait to spend more time than the 24 hours I had of running to and from airports in an hour shooting those images. I mean, it's going to be a real treat. If this is what you turn out in an hour when you're on the run trying to escape from a plane that's taking you back to snowier weathers, then it's going to be a wonderful workshop. Have you got a month in plan yet, or in mind?
We're thinking October, November, just trying to sort of settle in, but that's kind of weather-wise the best time to be there. It's a lovely time of year, and stay tuned, and I'll keep you posted. But October, November, and I'll post it on the website, and
it is the number one place for steak, isn't it? If you are, I know there's some vegetarians now listening, I'm sure, that are saying no, Neil, no, but it is, if you love your steak, it doesn't get much better than Argentina.
And that's something that I can't enjoy, because I am highly allergic to red meat. So You are absolutely right. But yes, I will be leading the charge with the vegetarians. And
when we find the restaurant, then David, you can do the dancing, and I'll eat from a table. Eating the steak.
No. I'll be hiding in the back somewhere. I'll have a camera in my hand.
Well, they're wonderful photographs, and
thank you.
I'm sure it's going to be an utter success. And my thanks to David Wright for coming back, as he promised, to talk about his voyage to Antarctica. And voyages, of course, to come with dancing shoes. Now, I'm going to go a lot left field with a play-out song today for that very reason.
And I have something to suit David's dancing feet for South America. It's going to play us out in a moment, this song, which will gather some thoughts perhaps about what's been said today, or give you a chance to do that. We have some world music. It's Infinito Tren, some Latin for your two left feet. Well, yours are probably fine. It's mine and David's I worry about. So my postscript in a moment, but a hearty thanks to those who give their time to help this show reach the ears of our very special community. Thanks to Neil Ford, who watches IT with an eagle eye. Over on socials, Andrea Gilpin runs Instagram, Kelly Mitchell handles Facebook, Kelvin Brown steers the Flickr group, and Michael Brennan builds the Spotify playlist each week so you can listen back to all our show tunes historically. Right, a postscript for the show. John Krakauer is probably, I think, our best bet here. He is a well-known author, an adventurer, who's written extensively about extreme places. And he said this: "The thing that is most beautiful about Antarctica for me is the light. It's like no other light on Earth, because the air is so free of impurities. You get drugs by it, like when you listen to one of your favorite songs. The light there is a mood-enhancing substance." Now, usually I would close here, but I think we should probably have one for Argentina, another place I'd love to visit. Eduardo Galeano was a Uruguayan writer who spent much of his life in Buenos Aires and became one of Latin America's most important literary voices. He wrote about ordinary people with extraordinary tenderness, the forgotten, the overlooked, the ones that history didn't bother to record. He understood that the real stories were never in the grand gestures, which makes him, I think, a pretty good patron saint for street photography. He said this: "Scientists say that human beings are made of atoms, but a little bird told me that we're also made of stories."
Infinito tren nos acaba, los paisajes cambian sin cesar, el silencio de las ventanas acarician mi hondo pesar. No puedo pensar en pararme. Este movimiento me acuna. Dicen por ahí que el tiempo cura. Yo solo me fío de mi andar. Infinito tren, cuánto tiempo, pasajeros pasan y se van. El destino está lleno de andenes, en alguno tendré que bajar. Y aunque volveré a embarcarme, embrujada por el loco azar, solo al mover me conozco y encuentro mi único hogar. Algo en el espacio entre un lugar y otro me consuela, me ofrece claridad para pensar, para sentir mi una sincera voluntad. La voz del tiempo es la única verdad que tengo. No, 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 no se acaba. No, 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 no se acaba.
The Photo Walk is a Loading Zone production.